Hey, I don't care who you work for. You can't just... Oh, you're the rookie, aren't you? The one and only. Well, the marshal's message said you were following a lead about a stolen ship. Later. Hey. Hey, I don't care who you work for. You can't just... Oh, you're the rookie, aren't you? If that's all it takes to bruise your ego, you're not gonna last very long in this line of work. Well, the marshal's message said you were following a lead about a stolen ship. Truth is, a lot of stolen goods flow through here. But this city is real good at keeping its secrets, even from us. No, I think you should be careful. Yeah, about that. This isn't Aquila City. The badge doesn't carry the same weight here. The people who run this place aren't overly concerned about the law. Our job is to keep the peace, make sure the violence doesn't get out of hand.
Plan was to half kill him, make sure he and his guards could put up no fight. Then using hypoxia, 5 minutes of anoxia, then force lower lock while Mike shoved in pure oxygen to restore balance. This should not kill anyone, but would knock out a person as thoroughly as anesthesia. Hazard to attackers would come from some or all of those inside having pea suits, but even that might not matter. Hypoxia is sneaky. You can pass out without realizing you are short on oxygen. His new chum's favorite fatal mistake. So Warden lived through it, and 3 of his women.
Here once,
But Warden,
some
though he lived,
hotshot deputy.
was no use. Brain had been oxygen-starved too long. A vegetable. No guard recovered, even though younger than he. Would appear anoxia, broke necks.
Billy Clayton.
In
His
Raptor
maintenance
Complex,
work
nobody
around
was
the
hurt.
city and keeps an eye
Once
on
lights
ship
were on,
traffic for
and
me.
oxygen restored, they
I'll
were
introduce
okay.
you, but don't
Including
expect a
6
favor.
rapists,
Even if it
murderers
doesn't cause
under lock
credits.
in barracks.
Nothing in neon is
Finn
free.
decided that shooting was too good for them, so he went judge, and used his squad as jury. They were stripped, hamstrung at ankles and wrists, turned over to women in complex. Makes me sick to think about what happened next, but don't suppose they lived through as long an ordeal as Mary Lyons endured. Women are amazing creatures. Sweet, soft, gentle, and far more savage than we are. Let me mention those Sphinx spies out of order. Lyle had been fiercely ready to eliminate them, but when we got around to them, she had lost stomach. I expected Prof to agree, but he shook head. No, dear Lyle. Much as I deplore violence, there are only 2 things to do with an enemy. Kill him, or make a friend of him. Anything in between piles up trouble for the future. A man who thinks on his friends once will do it again. And we have a long period ahead in which a think can be dangerous. They must go, and publicly, to cause others to be thoughtful. Lyle said, Professor, you once said that if you contemned a man, you would eliminate him personally. Is that what you were going to do?
That was pretty impressive how you volunteered to help
Yes,
out with
dear
the bad
lady.
guys to the Keeler
And
City.
no,
Yeah,
the blood shall be on
read
my
all the
hands.
reports.
I accept
Learned quickly that
responsibility.
neon stain
But I have in mind a way more likely to discourage other thinks. So, Adam Celine announced that these persons had been employed by Juan Alvarez, late security chief for former authority, as undercover spies, and gave names and addresses. Adam did not suggest that anything be done. One man remained on Dodge for 7 months by changing warrants and names. Then, early in '77, his body was found outside Novelin's Lock, but most of them lasted no more than hours. During first hours after coup d'etat, we were faced with a problem we had never managed to plan. Adam Celine himself. Who is Adam Celine? Where is he? This is his revolution. He handled every detail. Every comrade knows his voice. We're out in open now. So where is Adam? We batted it around much of that night, in room L of Raffles. Argued it between decisions on 100 things that came up, and people wanted to know what to do, while Adam, through other voices, handled other decisions that did not require talk. Composed phony news to send Earthside, kept complex isolated, many things. Is no possible doubt. Without Mike, we could not have taken Luna, nor held it. My notion was that Prof should become Adam. Prof was always our planner and theoretician. Everybody knew him. Some key comrades knew that he was Comrade Bill, and all others knew and respected Professor Bernardo de la Paz. My work here taught half of leading citizens in Luna City, many from other warrens, was known to every VIP in Luna. No, said Prof. Why not? Asked Lyle. Prof, you're up to telling Mike. Comment reserved, said Mike. I want to hear what Prof has to say. I say you've analyzed it, Mike. Prof answered. Why, Dearest comrade, I would not refuse were it possible, but there is no way to make my voice match that of Adam, and every comrade knows Adam by his voice. Mike made it memorable for that very purpose. We had considered whether Proof could be slipped in anyhow, showing him only on video, letting Mike reshape whatever Proof said into voice expected from Adam. Was turned down. Too many people knew Proof, had heard him speak. His voice and way of speaking could not be reconciled with Adam. Then they considered some possibility from me. My voice and Mike's were baritone, and not too many people knew what I sounded like over phone, and none over video. I trumped on it. People were going to be surprised enough to find me one of our chairman's lieutenants. They would never believe I was number one. I said, let's combine deals. Adam has been a mystery all along. Keep him that way. He'll be seen only over video, in a mask. Prof, you supply body. Mike, you supply voice. Prof shook head. I can think of no surer way to destroy confidence in our most critical period than by having a leader who wears a mask. No, Manny.
Whoa, relax.
We talked about finding an actor to play it. We're no professional actors in Luna then, but we're good amateurs and Luna civic players,
Right now, my life is
and in November straight theater associates.
Freestar Rangers are supposed to protect
No.
the innocent, right?
Said Proof. Aside from finding an actor of requisite character, one who would not decide to be Napoleon, we can't wait. Adam must start handling things no later than tomorrow morning. In that case, I said, you've answered it. Have to use Mike and never put him on video. Radio only. Have to figure excuse, but Adam must never be seen. I'm forced to agree,
Okay?
said Proof.
I need to know I can count on
Man, my oldest friend, said Mike. Why do you say that I can't be seen? Haven't you listened? I said. Mike, we have to show a face and body on video.
Then you need to hear this.
You have a body, but it's several tons of metal.
He died while
A face you don't have. Lucky you. Don't have to shave.
Now, Goodman's coming after me to
But what's to keep me from showing a face, man? I'm showing a voice this instant, but there's no sound behind it. I can show a face the same way. Was so taken aback I didn't answer. I stared at the video screen, installed and released that ROM. A pulse is a pulse is a pulse.
From where I'm
Electrons chasing each other.
Problems are
To
intertwined
Mike,
like a couple
whole world was variable series of electrical pulses, sent or received or chasing around his innards. I said, no, Mike.
You understand the
Why not, man? Because you can't. Voice you handle beautifully. Involves only a few thousand decisions a second. A slow crawl to you. But to build a video picture would require, say, 10 million decisions every second.
Okay.
Mike, you're so fast I can't even think about it.
The woman you're looking
But
for
you
is
aren't
named
that
Grace
fast.
Early. Stealing ships is her line of work.
Mike said
She
swiftly.
usually comes here to sell the goods.
Want to bet,
Rumor
man?
has it she just finished a job. with
Lyle
some
said
mercenaries.
indignantly.
She's been throwing
Of course Mike can if he says he can. Manny, you shouldn't talk that way.
When she isn't out on a job,
Lyle
she's
thinks an
making
electron is something about size and shape of a
That's on the
small
upper
pea.
platform. I'll back you.
Mike,
Whoa,
I said slowly,
Me.
I won't put money on it.
if I were you,
Okay, want to try?
get the hell out of Neon.
Shall
and
I
start
switch on
over
video?
somewhere else.
I can switch it on. He answered. Sure you'll get the right one. Wouldn't do to have these shows somewhere else. He answered testily. I'm not stupid. Now let me be, man, for I admit this is going to take just about all I've got. We waited in silence. And then screen showed neutral gray, with a hint of scan lines. Went blank again, then a faint light filled middle, and congealed into cloudy areas light and dark. Ellipsoid. Not the face, but suggestion of face that one sees in cloud patterns covering Terra. It cleared a little, and reminded me of pictures alleged to be ectoplasm, a ghost of a face. Suddenly firmed, and we saw Adam Celine.
Look, I ain't gonna stand
was a
around
still
all day.
picture of a mature man. No background, just a face as if trimmed out of a print. Yet was, to me, Adam Celine. Could not be anybody else.
A Freestar Ranger. And
Then,
he's-
he
what are you?
smiled,
A sidekick or
moved
something?
lips and jaw, and touched tongue to lips. A quick gesture. And I was frightened. How do I look? He
I'm
asked.
sure your mom is real proud.
Adam, said
So how
Lyle,
come I'm talking to the
your hair
sidekick
isn't that
instead of the
curly,
Ranger?
and it should go back on each side above your forehead. You look as if you were wearing a wig, dear.
And you had to bring backup just
Mike
for
corrected
little
it.
me?
Is that better?
I'm flattered.
Not quite so
Anyway,
much.
This ain't my first
I don't have
interrogation,
dimples.
so let's just
I was
get
sure
on
I
with
could
it.
hear dimples when you chuckle, like props. Mike Adams smiled again. This time, he had dimples. How should I be dressed, Wyo? Are you at your office? I'm still
Why
at
wasn't
office.
it Rapt Detention Day?
Have to be tonight.
I'm guessing this is the part
Background
where
turned
you
gray,
that you've got
then came into
questions
focus
and
in
that you
color.
expect me to
A
answer.
wall calendar behind him gave
Sound
date.
about right?
Tuesday, 19 May, 2076. A clock showed correct time. Near his elbow was a carton of coffee. On desk was a solid picture.
Fine.
A
Yes.
family group.
I jacked
2
the
men,
ship.
a woman, 4
But
children.
Look, I was just a
There's
contractor.
background noise.
I didn't even keep
Muted
the ship.
roar
I
of
gave it to
Old
some
Dome
men.
Plaza louder than
It was
usual.
just a quick, clean job.
I heard shouting in distance someone singing Simon's version of Marseillaise. Off screen, Jean Wallace's voice said, Господин. Adam turned toward it. I'm busy, Albert.
They
He said
didn't tell me
patiently.
what they were gonna do.
No calls from anyone
Was I
but Cell
supposed to know
B.
they were gonna go after
You
some
handle everything
foreigner?
else.
You should have asked when
He
you
looked
took the
back at us.
contract.
Well,
If that
Lyle,
woman
suggestions,
had been killed,
proof.
you'd be an accessory.
Man, my doubting friend.
Think about
Will
that.
I pass?
I
I rubbed eyes.
I guess I didn't.
Mike, can you cook? Certainly, but I don't. I'm married. Adam, said Lyle, how can you look so neat after the day we've had? I don't let little things worry me. He looked at proof. Professor, if the picture is okay, let's discuss what I'll say tomorrow. I was thinking of preempting the 800 newscast, have it announced all night, and pass the word down the cells. We talked the rest of the night. I sent up for coffee twice, and Mike Adam had his carton renewed. When I ordered sandwiches, he asked Ginwala to send out for some. I got a glimpse of Albert Ginwala in profile. A
What?
typical Babu,
Am I
polite and faintly scornful. Hadn't known what he looked like. Mike ate while we ate, sometimes mumbling around a mouthful of food. When I asked, professional interest, Mike told me that, after he had picture built up, he had programmed most of it for automatic and gave his attention just to facial expressions. But soon I forgot it was fake. Mike Adam was talking with us by video, was all. Much more convenient than by phone.
It's not that simple.
By all 300, we had policy settled. Then Mike rehearsed speech. Profound points he wanted to add.
Maybe
Mike
we can
made
work something
revisions.
out.
Then we decided to get some rest. Even Mike Adam was yawning.
But
Although in fact Mike held fort all through night. Guarding transmissions
no
to
way I
Terra.
cheat a Freestar Ranger.
Keeping complex walled
Not
off.
that stupid.
Listening at many
I was
phones.
approached by a woman named
Prof and I shared big bed.
Said she
Lyle
was a
stretched out on
member
couch.
first, and
I
that she
whistled
had a
lights
job
out.
for me.
For once we
She was
slept
working
without
with someone
weights.
inside Hope Tech and pitched me on the idea
While we
of
had
driving the
breakfast,
ship.
Adam Selena dressed Free Luna.
We were deep into
He was
planning the
gentle,
job when she had some
strong,
kind of
warm,
medical
and
emergency.
persuasive.
She said she needed
Citizens of Free
surgery
Luna,
and would be in
friends,
recovery for a long
comrades.
time. That was a
To
few
those
weeks
of you
ago.
who do not know me, let me introduce myself.
Have a nice day.
I am Adam Celine, chairman of the Emergency Committee of Comrades for Free Luna. Now of Free Luna. We are free, at last. The so-called authority which has long usurped power in this our home has been overthrown. I find myself temporary head of such government as we have,
I was
the
in
Emergency
March.
Committee.
She was working.
Shortly,
We were deep into planning
as
the
quickly
job.
as can be arranged,
She
you will
said
opt
she
your own
knew.
government.
That was a few weeks ago.
Adam smiled and made a gesture inviting help. In the meantime, with your help, I shall do my best. We will make mistakes. Be tolerant. Comrades, if you have not revealed yourselves to friends and neighbors,
No.
it is time you did
Doesn't
so.
seem right. I should.
Citizens, Requests may reach you through your comrade neighbors.
Got the feeling he was paranoid.
I hope you will comply willingly. It will speed the day when I can bow out
Anything else you want to know?
and life can get back to normal. A new normal. Free of the authority. Free of guards. Free of troops stationed on us. Free of passports and searches and arbitrary arrests. There has to be a transition. To all of you, please go back to work. Resume normal lives. To those who worked for the authority, the need is the same. Go back to work. Wages will go on. Your jobs stay the same until we can decide what is needed, what happily no longer is needed now that we are free, and what must be kept but modified. You new citizens, transportees, sweating out sentences pronounced on you Earthside. You are free. Your sentences are finished. But in the meantime, I hope that you will go on working. You are not required to. The days of coercion are gone. But you are urged to. You are, of course, free to leave the complex. Free to go anywhere. And capsule service to and from the complex will resume at once. But before you use your new freedom to rush into town, let me remind you. There is no such thing as a free lunch. You are better off for the time being where you are. The food may not be fancy, but will continue hot and on time. To take on temporarily those necessary functions of the defunct authority, I have asked the general manager of Lunoho Company to serve. This company will provide temporary supervision and will start analyzing how to do away with the tyrannical parts of the authority and how to transfer the useful parts to private hands. So please help them. To you citizens of Terran nations among us, scientists and travelers and others, greetings. You are witnessing a rare event, the birth of a nation. Birth means blood and pain. There has been some. We hope it is over. You will not be inconvenienced unnecessarily, and your passage home will be arranged as soon as possible. Conversely, you are welcome to stay. Still more welcome to become citizens. But for the present, I urge you to stay out of the corridors. Avoid incidents that might lead to unnecessary blood, unnecessary pain. Be patient with us, and I urge my fellow citizens to be patient with you. Scientists from Terra, at the observatory and elsewhere, go on with your work and ignore us. Then you won't even notice that we are going through the pangs of creating a new nation. One thing, I am sorry to say that we are temporarily interfering with your right to communicate with Earthside. This we do from necessity. Censorship will be lifted as quickly as possible. We hate it as much as you do. Adam, I did one more request. Don't try to see me, comrades, and phone me only if you must. All others, write if you need to. Your letters will receive prompt attention. But I am not twins. I got no sleep last night and can't expect much tonight. I can't address meetings, can't shake hands, can't meet delegations. I must stick to this desk and work, so that I can get rid of this job and turn it over to your choice. He grinned at them. Expect me to be as hard to see as Simon Jester. It was a 15-minute cast, but that was essence. Go back to work, be patient, give us time. Those scientists gave us almost no time. I should have guessed. Was sort of my pigeon. All communication from Mike, but those brain boys had enough electronic equipment to stock a warehouse. Once they decided to, it took them only hours to breadboard a rig that could reach Terra. Only thing that saved us was a fellow traveler who thought Luna should be free. He tried to phone Adam Celine, wound up talking to one of his squad of women we had co-opted from C&D level. A system thrown together in self-defense as, despite Mike's request, half of Luna tried to phone Adam Celine after that videocast. Everything from requests and demands to busybodies who wanted to tell Adam how to do his job. After about 100 calls got routed to me through too much zeal by a comrade and phone company, we set up this buffer squad. Happily, comrade lady who took this call recognized that sue them down doctrine did not apply. She phoned me. Minutes later, myself and Finn Nielsen, plus some eager guns, headed back capsule for laboratory area. Our informant was scared to give name, but had told me where to find transmitter. We caught them transmitting, and only fast action on Finn's part kept him breathing. His boys were itchy. But we did not want to make an example. Finn and I had settled on that way out. It's hard to frighten scientists. Their minds don't work that way. Have to get at them from other angles. I kicked that transmitter to pieces and ordered the director to have everyone assemble in mess hall, and required roll call, where a phone could hear. Then I talked to Mike, got names from him, and said to the director, "Doctor, you told me they were all here. We're missing so-and-so. 7 names. Get them here." Missing Terrans had been notified and refused to stop what they were doing. Typical scientists. Then I talked. Loonies on one side of the room, Terrans on other. To Terrans I said, "We tried to treat you as guests, but 3 of you tried and perhaps succeeded in sending message outside." I turned to the director. "Doctor, I could search Warren, surface structures, all labs, every space, and destroy everything that might be used for transmitter. I'm an electron pusher by trade. I know what wide variety of components can be converted into transmitters. Suppose I destroy everything that might be useful for that, and being stupid, take no chance, and smash anything I don't understand. What result?" Would have thought I was about to kill his baby. He turned gray. "That would stop every research, destroy priceless data, waste, I don't know how much, call it $500 million. So I thought, could take all that gear instead of smashing, and let you go on best you can. That would be almost as bad. You must understand, Gaspadine, that when an experiment is interrupted, I know, easier than moving anything, and maybe missing some, is to take you all to complex and quarter you there. We have what used to be Dragoon barracks, but that, too, would ruin experiments. Besides, where are you from, Doctor?" "Princeton, New Jersey." "So, you've been there 5 months and not exercising and wearing weights. Doctor, if we did that, you might never see Princeton again. If we move you, we'll keep you locked up. You'll get soft. If emergency goes on very long, you'll be a loony like it or not, and all your brainy help with you." A cocky chum stepped forward, one who had been sent for twice. "You can't do this. It's against the law." "What law, Gaspadine? Some law back in your hometown." I turned. "Finn, show him law." Finn stepped forward and placed the emission envelope gun at man's belly button. Thumb started to press down. Safety switched, I could see. I said, "Don't kill him, Finn." Then went on, "I will eliminate this man, if that's what it takes to convince you. So watch each other. One more offense will kill all your chances of seeing home again, as well as ruining researches. Doctor, I want you to find ways to keep check on your staff." I turned to Lunis. "Tavaji, keep them honest. Work up on guard system. Don't take nonsense. Every earthworm is on probation. If you have to eliminate some, don't hesitate." I turned to the director. "Doctor, any loony can go anywhere, anytime, even your bedroom. Your assistants are now your bosses, so far as security is concerned. If a loony decides to follow you, or anybody, into a WC, don't argue. He might be jumpy." I turned to loonies. "Security first. You each work for some earthworm. Watch him. Split it among you, and don't miss anything. Watch them so close they can't build mousetrap, much less transmitter. If he interferes with work for them, don't worry. Wages will go on." Could see grins. Lab assistant was best jabaloni could find those days, but they worked under earthworms who looked down on us, even ones who pretended and were also gracious. I let it go at that. When I had been phoned, I had intended to eliminate offenders, But Prof and Mike set me straight. Plan did not permit violence against Terrans that could be avoided. We set up ears, wideband sensitive receivers around lab area, since even most directorial rigs spill a little in neighborhood. And Mike listened on all phones in area. After that, we chewed nails and hoped. Presently we relaxed, as news up from Earthside showed nothing. They seemed to accept censored transmissions without suspicion, and private and commercial traffic and authorities' transmissions all seemed routine. Meanwhile we worked, trying in days what should take months. We received one break in timing. No passenger ship was on Luna, and none was due until 7 July. We could have copped, suckered a ship's officer to dine with Warden or something, then mounted guard on its senders or dismantled them. Could not have lifted without our help. In those days, one drain on ice was providing water for reaction mass. Was not much drain compared with grain shipments. One man ship a month was heavy trapping then, while grain lifted every day. What it did mean was that an incoming ship was not an insuperable hazard. Nevertheless, was lucky break. We were trying so hard to make everything look normal until we could defend ourselves. Grain shipments went on as before. One was catapulted almost as Finn's men were breaking into Warden's residence. And next went out on time, and all others. Neither oversight nor faking for interim. Prof knew what he was doing. Grain shipments were a big operation for a little country like Luna, and couldn't be changed in one semilunar. Bread and beer of too many people was involved. If our committee had ordered embargo and quit buying grain, we would have been chucked out, and a new committee with other ideas would have taken over. Prof said that an educational period was necessary. Meanwhile, grain barges catapulted as usual. Luna Hoko kept books and issued receipts, using civil service personnel. Dispatches went out in Warden's name, and Mike talked to authority Earthside, using Warden's voice. Deputy Administrator proved reasonable, once he understood it upped his life expectancy. Chief Engineer stayed on job too. McIntyre was a real loony, given chance, rather than think by nature. Other department heads and minor stooges were no problem. Life went on as before, and we were too busy to unwind authority system and put useful parts up for sale. Over a dozen people turned up claiming to be Simon Jester. Simon wrote a rude verse disclaiming them, and a picture on front page of Lunatic, Pravda, and Gong. Lyle let herself go blonde and made trip to see Greg at new catapult site. Then a longer trip, 10 days, to old home in Hong Kong, Luna, taking Anna, who wanted to see it. Lyle needed a vacation, and Prof urged her to take it, pointing out that she was in touch by phone, and a closer party contact was needed in Hong Kong. I took over her still Yagi with Slim and Hazel as my lieutenants. Bright, sharp kids I could trust. Slim was awed to discover that I was Comrade Borg, and saw Adam Celine every day. His party name started with G. Many a good team for other reasons too. Hazel suddenly started showing cushiony curves, and all from Mimi's superb table. She had reached that point in her orbit. Slim was ready to change her name to Stone anytime she was willing to opt. In the meantime, he was anxious to do party work he could share with our fierce little redhead. Not everybody was willing. Many comrades turned out to be talk soldiers. Still more thought war was over once we had eliminated peace goons and captured Warden. Others were indignant to learn how far down they were in party structure. They wanted to elect a new structure, themselves atop. Adam received endless calls proposing this, or something like it. Would listen, agree, assure them that their services must not be wasted by waiting for election, and refer them to Prof or me. Can't recall any of these ambitious people who amounted to anything when I tried to put them to work. Was endless work, and nobody wanted to do it. Well, a few. Some best volunteers were people party never located. But in general, loonies in and out of party had no interest in patriotic work, unless well paid. A chum who claimed to be a party member was not. Spragged me in Raffles, where we set up headquarters, and wanted me to contract for 50,000 buttons to be worn by pre-coup veterans of revolution. A small profit for him, I estimate 400% markup. $80 from me, a fine thing for everybody. When I brushed him off, he threatened to denounce me to Adam Celine. A very good friend of mine, I'll have you know. For sabotage. That was help we got. What we needed was something else. Needed steel at New Catapult, and plenty. Prof asked if really necessary to put steel around rock missiles. I had to point out that an induction field won't grab bare rock. We needed to relocate Mike's ballistic radars at old site and install Doppler radar at new site. Both jobs because we could expect attacks from space at old site. We called for volunteers. Got only 2 who could be used. I needed several hundred mechanics who did not mind hard work in pea suits. So, we hired. Paid what we had to. Luna Hoko went into hock to Bank of Hong Kong Luna. Was no time to steal that much, and most funds had to be transferred outside the stew. A dinkum comrade, fool Moses Morris, co-signed much paper to keep us going, and wound up broke, and started over with a little tailoring shop in Kongville. That was later. Authority script dropped from 3-1 to 17-1 after coup, and civil service people screamed as Mike was still paying in authority checks. We said they could stay on or resign. Then those we needed, we rehired with Hong Kong dollars, but created a large group not on our side from then on. They longed for good old days and were ready to stab new regime. Grain farmers and brokers were unhappy because payment at Catapult had continued to be authority script at same old fixed prices. We won't take it, they cried. And Luna Hoko man would shrug and tell them they didn't have to, but this grain still went to authority outside. And did. And authority script was all they would get. So, take check, unload your grain back in Rolligan, and get it out of here. Most took it. All grumbled and some threatened to get out of grain and start growing vegetables or fibers or something that brought Hong Kong dollars. And Proof smiled. We needed every drillman in Luna, especially ice miners who owned heavy-duty laser drills. As soldiers. We needed them so badly that, despite being shy one wing and rusty, I considered joining up, even though it takes muscles to wrestle a big drill, and prosthetic just isn't muscle. Prof told me not to be a fool. Dodge we had in mind would not work well outside. A laser beam carrying heavy power works best in vacuum, but there it works just dandy for whatever range its collimation is good for. These big drills, which had carved through rock, seeking pockets of ice, were now being mounted as artillery to repel space attacks. Both ships and missiles have electronic nervous systems, and does electronic gear no good to blast it with up-team jewels placed in a tight beam? If target is pressured, as manned ships are, and most missiles, all it takes is to burn a hole, depressure it. If not pressured, a heavy laser beam can still kill it. Burn eyes, lost guidance, spill anything depending on electronics, as most everything does. An H-bomb with circuitry ruined is not a bomb. It's just big tub of lithium fluoride that can't do anything but crash. A ship with eyes gone is a derelict, not a warship. Sounds easy. Is not. Those laser drills were never meant for targets 1,000 kilometers away, or even 1, and was no quick way to rig their cradles for accuracy. Connor had to have guts to hold fire until the last few seconds, on a target headed at him, maybe 2 kilometers per second. That was best we had. So, we organized 1st and 2nd volunteer defense gunners of Free Luna. 2 regiments, so that 1st could snub Lola's 2nd, and 2nd could be jealous of 1st. 1st got older men, 2nd got young and eager. I didn't call them volunteers, we hired in Hong Kong dollars. And was no accident that ice was paid for in controlled market in waste paper authority script. On top of all, we were talking up a war scare. Adam Celine talked over video, reminding that authority was certain to try to regain its tyranny, and we had only days to prepare. Papers quoted him and published stories of their own. We had made special effort to recruit newsmen before coup. People were urged to keep pea suits always near and to test pressure alarms in homes. A volunteer civil defense corps was organized in each warren. But with moonquakes always with us, each warren's pressure co-op always had sealing crews ready at any hour.
Got some trouble?
Even with silicone stay soft and fiberglass, any warren leaks.
New deputy, ain't you?
In Davis Tunnel, our boys did maintenance on seal every day.
All in the loop and
But now we recruited hundreds of emergency sealing crews, mostly still Yagi, drilled them with fake emergencies, had them stay in pea suits with helmets open when on duty. They did beautifully. But idiots made fun of them. Play soldiers. Adam's little apples. Other names. A team was going through a drill, showing they could throw a temporary lock around one that had been damaged, and one of these pinheads stood by and rode them loudly. Civil defense team went ahead, completed temporary lock, tested it with helmets closed. It held.
so
Came out, grabbed this joker, took him through the temporary lock, and out into zero pressure. Dumped him.
every ranger
Belittlers kept opinions to self to that. Prof thought we ought to send out a gentle warning not to eliminate so peremptorily. I opposed it, and got my way.
beats anything them
Could see no better way to improve breed.
ironic.
Certain types of loudmouthism should be a capital offense among decent people.
Help you. Right this way.
But our biggest headaches were self-anointed statesmen. Did I say that loonies are non-political?
Just
They are,
between you and me,
when it comes to doing anything.
entirely sure why
But that if was ever a time two loonies over a liter of beer did not swap loud opinions about how things ought to be run.
bodyguard for Dr. Darvish.
As mentioned, these self-appointed political scientists tried to grab Adam Celine's ear. But Prof had a place for them. Each was invited to take part in Ad Hoc Congress for Organization of Free Luna, which met in Community Hall in Lim City. Then resolved to stay in session until work was done.
The only one
A week in El City, a week in Novelin, then Hong Kong, and start over.
working hard or
All sessions were in video. Prof presided over first, and Adam Celine addressed them by video and encouraged them to do a thorough job.
well, the deputy
History is watching you.
came looking for someone who
I listened to some sessions, then cornered Prof and asked what in Bog's name was he up to.
Mr. Miller's capable.
Thought you didn't want any government?
Need anything else?
Have you heard those nuts since you turned them loose? He smiled, most dimply smile. What's troubling you, Manuel? Many things were troubling me. With me bragging hard trying to round up heavy drills and men who could treat them as guns, these idlers had spent an entire afternoon discussing immigration. Some wanted to stop it entirely. Some wanted to tax it, high enough to finance government. When 99 out of 100 loonies had to be dragged to the rock. Some wanted to make it selective by ethnic ratios. Wondered how they would count me.
Name's not ringing any bells.
Some wanted to limit it to females until we were 50-50. That had produced a Scandinavian shout, "Ja, Cobber. Tell 'em send us whores. Thousands and thousands of whores. I marry 'em, yeah, I betcha." Was most sensible remark all afternoon. Another time they argued. Time.
I can access the patient
Sure,
records from
Greenwich
the
time bears no relation to lunar.
operates.
But why should it when we live underground? Show me a loony who can sleep 2 weeks and work 2 weeks. Lunars don't fit our metabolism. What was urged was to make a lunar exactly equal to 28 days, instead of 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, 2.78 seconds. And do this by making days longer than hours, minutes, and seconds, thus making each semilunar exactly 2 weeks.
Okay, give me just a minute.
Sure. Lunar is necessary for many purposes. Controls when we go up on surface, why we go, and how long we stay. But, aside from throwing us out of gear with our only neighbor, Had that wordy vacuum skull thought what this would do to every critical figure in science and engineering.
No matches found.
As an electronics man, I shuddered. Throw away every book, table, instrument, and start over. I know that some of my ancestors did that in switching from Old English units to MKS, but they did it to make things easier. 14 inches to a foot, and some odd number of feet to a mile. Ounces and pounds, ugh, bug. Made sense to change that. But why go out of your way to create confusion? Somebody wanted a committee to determine exactly what loony language is. Then fine everybody who talked Earthside English or other language.
She's got to be using an alias,
My people.
which actually makes a lot of sense if she's.
I read tax proposals in Lunatic. 4 sorts of single taxers. A cubic tax that would penalize a man if he extended tunnels. A head tax, everybody pays some. Income tax, like to see anyone figure income of Davis family, or try to get information out of mom. And an air tax, which was not fees we paid then, but something else. Hadn't realized Free Luna was going to have taxes. Hadn't had any before, and got along. You paid for what you got. Tunstaffel. How else? Another time some pompous chum proposed that bad breath and body odors be made an elimination offense. Could almost sympathize. Having men stuck on occasion in a capsule with such things. But doesn't happen often, and tends to be self-correcting. Chronic offenders, or unfortunates who can't correct, aren't likely to reproduce, seeing how choosy women are. One female, most were men, but women made up for it in silliness. Had a long list she wanted made permanent laws about private matters.
This makes me feel awful.
No more plural marriage of any sort. No divorces. No fornication. Had to look that one up.
Why, hello.
No drink stronger than 4% beer.
Company.
Church services only on Saturdays, and all else to stop that day.
These doctors or nurses to
Air
say
and
they
temperature
don't
and
just
pressure
want to
engineering
know.
lady. Phones and capsules.
They're too busy.
A long list of drugs to be prohibited, and a shorter list dispensed only by licensed physicians. What is a licensed physician?
Taking care of
Healer I go to has a sign reading practical doctor. Makes book on side, which is why I go to them. Look, lady, aren't any medical schools in Luna. I mean,
I do it to myself.
she even wanted to make gambling illegal.
For example,
If a loony couldn't roll double or nothing, he would go to a shop that would, even if dice were loaded.
all I get is
Thing that got me was not her list of things she hated, since she was obviously crazy as a cyborg, but the fact that always somebody agreed with her prohibitions.
Well, I
Must be a yearning deep in human heart to stop other people from doing as they please.
must have caught some kind of-
Rules,
I'd had tests.
laws,
Tests for 3
always
days
for
straight.
other fellow. A murky part of us, something we had before we came down out of trees and felt the shock when we stood up.
I thought
Because not one of those people said, please pass this so I won't be able to do something I know I should stop.
Come on then.
Yeah, tovaryshi. Was always something they hated to see neighbors doing. Stop them for their own good. Not because speaker claimed to be harmed by it. Listening to that session, I was almost sorry we got rid of Mort the Wart. He stayed holed up with his women and didn't tell us how to run private lives.
Deputy?
But Prof didn't get excited. He went on smiling. Manuel, do you really think that mob of retarded children can pass any laws? You told them to. Urged them to. Dear Manuel, I was simply putting all my nuts in one basket. I know those nuts. I've listened to them for years. I was very careful in selecting their committees. They all have built-in confusion. They will quarrel. The chairman I forced on them while letting them elect him is a ditherer who could not unravel a piece of string. Thinks every subject needs more study. I almost needn't have bothered. More than 6 people cannot agree on anything. 3 is better, and 1 is perfect for a job that 1 can do. This is why parliamentary bodies all through history, when they accomplished anything, owed it to a few strong men who dominated the rest. Never fear, son. This ad hoc Congress will do nothing.
To come in here.
Or if they pass something through sheer fatigue, it will be so loaded with contradictions that it will have to be thrown out. In the meantime, they are out of our hair. Besides, there is something we need them for. Later. I thought you said they could do nothing. They won't do this. One man will write it, a dead man. And late at night, when they are very tired, they'll pass it by acclamation. Who's this dead man? You don't mean Mike? No, no. Mike is far more alive than those yammerheads. The dead man is Thomas Jefferson, first of the rational anarchists, my boy. And one who almost managed to slip over his non-system through the most beautiful rhetoric ever written. But they caught him at it, which I hope to avoid. I cannot improve on his phrasing. I shall merely adapt it to Luna and the 21st century. Heard of him? Freed slaves, niet. One might say he tried, but failed. Never mind. How are the defenses progressing? I don't see how we can keep up the pretense past the arrival date of this next ship. Can't be ready then. Mike says we must be. We weren't, but ship never arrived. Those scientists outsmarted me and loonies I had told to watch them.
I reached the clinic, I
Was a rig at focal point the biggest reflector, and loony assistants believed double talk about astronomical purpose, a new wrinkle in radio telescopes. I suppose it was ultra-microwave, and stuff was bounced as reflector by a waveguide, and thus left scoped, lined up nicely by mirror.
I don't have time for that.
Remarkably like early radar.
Nothing I told you.
And metal lattice work, and foil heat shield of barrels stopped stray radiation, thus ears I had staked out heard nothing. They put message across, their version, and in detail. First we heard was the man from authority to warn to deny this hoax. Fine hoaxer. Put stop to it.
If you don't mind.
So, instead, we gave them a Declaration of Independence. In Congress assembled, July 4th, 2076. Was beautiful. 15.
Hey, how'd it go?
Signing a Declaration of Independence went as Proof said it would. He sprang it on them at the end of a long day. Announced a special session after dinner, at which Adam Selim would speak. Adam read aloud,
As a matter of
discussing each sentence, then read it without stopping, making music of sonorous phrases.
her name's
People
Catherine
wept.
Rivera. She was
Lyo,
rushed
seated by me, was one,
some-
and I felt like it, even though I'd read it earlier.
She seems to fit your suspect.
Then Adam looked at them and said,
That area
"The future is waiting. Mark well what you do." And turned meeting over to Proof, rather than usual chairman.
Dr. Cassidy's in
Was
charge of the
2200,
you need his
and
permission.
fight began.
Unfortunately,
Sure, they were in favor of it.
for the rules,
News all day had been jammed with what bad boys we were,
but I happen
how we were to be punished, taught their lesson, so forth. Not necessary to spice it up. Stuff from Earthside was nasty. Mike merely left out, on the other hand, opinions. If ever was a day when Luna felt unified, it was probably 2nd of July, 2076.
How does she expect me to get all this done by myself?
So, they were going to pass it. Proof knew that before he offered it, but not as written. Honorable Chairman, in second paragraph, that word, unalienable, is no such word, should be inalienable. And anyhow, wouldn't it be more dignified to say sacred rights rather than inalienable rights? I'd like to hear discussion on this. That chum was almost sensible, merely a literary critic, which is harmless, like dead yeast left in beer. But, well, take that woman who hated everything. She was there with List, read it aloud and moved to have it incorporated into Declaration. So that the peoples of Terra will know that we are civilized and fit to take our places in the councils of mankind.
top of my game, Dr. Darvish would have
Proof not only let her get away with it, he encouraged her, letting her talk when other people wanted to. Then blandly put her proposal to a vote, when hadn't even been seconded. Congress operated by rules they had wrangled over for days. Proof was familiar with rules, but followed them only as suited him. She was voted down in a shout and left. Then somebody stood up and said, of course that long list didn't belong in declaration, but shouldn't we have general principles? Maybe a statement that Luna, free state, guarantee freedom, equality, and security to all. Nothing elaborate. Just those fundamental principles that everybody knew was proper purpose of government. True enough. And let's pass it. But must read freedom, equality, peace, and security. Right, comrade? They wrangled over whether freedom included free air, or was that part of security? Wouldn't that be on safe side and list free air by name? Move to amend to make it free air and water. Because you didn't have freedom or security unless you had both air and water. Air, water, and food. Air, water, food, and cubic. Air, water, food, cubic, and heat. No, make heat read power. And you had it all covered. Everything. Cover, have you lost your mind? That's far from everything, and what you looked at is an affront to all womankind. Step outside and say that. Let me finish. We've got to tell them right from deal that we will permit no more ships to land unless they carry at least as many women as men. At least, I said, and I for one won't shop it unless it sets immigration issues straight. Prof never lost dimples. Began to see why Prof had slept all day and was not wearing weights. Me? Huh, I was tired. Having spent all day in pea suit out beyond Catapult Head, cutting in last of relocated ballistic radars. And everybody was tired. By midnight, crowd began to thin, convinced that nothing would be accomplished that night, and bored by any yammer not their own. Was later than midnight when someone asked why this declaration was dated 4th when today was 2nd. Prof said mildly that it was July 3rd now, and it seemed unlikely that our declaration could be announced earlier than 4th, and that July 4th carried historical symbolism that might help. Several people walked out at the announcement that probably nothing would be settled until 4th of July. But I began to notice something. Hall was filling as fast as was emptying. Finn Nielsen slid into a seat that had just been vacated. Comrade Clayton from Hong Kong showed up, pressed my shoulder, smiled at Wyo, found a seat. My youngest lieutenants, Slim and Hazel, I spotted down front, and was thinking I must alibi Hazel by telling Mom I had kept her out on party business. One was amused to see Mom herself next to them. And Sidrus and Greg, who was supposed to be at New Catapult, looked around and picked out a dozen more. Night editor of Lunaya Pravda, general manager of Luno Hoko, others, and each one a working comrade. Began to see that Prof had stacked deck. That Congress never had a fixed membership. These dinkum comrades had as much right to show up as those who had been talking a month. Now they sat and voted down amendments. About 300, when I was wondering how much more I could take, someone brought a note to Prof. He read it, banged the gavel, and said, Adam Selim begs your indulgence. Do I hear unanimous consent? So, screen back of Rostrum lighted up again, and Adam told them that he had been following debate and was warned by many thoughtful and constructive criticisms. But could he make a suggestion? Why not admit that any piece of writing was imperfect? If his declaration was, in general, what they wanted, why not postpone perfection for another day and pass this as it stands? Honorable Chairman, I so move. Lit past it with a yell. Prof said, Do I hear objection? And waited, with gavel raised. A man who had been talking when Adam had asked to be heard said, Well, I still say that's a dangling participle, but okay, leave it in. Prof banged gavel. So ordered. Then we filed up and put our chops on a big scroll that had been sent over from Adam's office, and I noticed Adam's chop on it. I signed right under Hazel. Child now could write, although still short on book learning. Her chop was shaky, but she wrote it large and proud. Comrade Clayton signed his party name, real name in letters, and Japanese chop. 3 little pictures, one above other. 2 comrades chopped with X's and had them witnessed. All party leaders were there that night, morning. All chopped it, and not more than a dozen yammerers stuck. But those who did put their chops down for history to read, and thereby committed their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. While Q was moving slowly past and people were talking, Prof banged for attention. I asked for volunteers for a dangerous mission. This declaration will go on the news channels, but must be presented in person to the Federated Nations on Terra. That put stop to noise. Prof was looking at me. I swallowed and said, I volunteer. Lyle echoed, so do I. And little Hazel Mead said, me too. In moments where it doesn't, from Finn Nielsen to Guspadine, dangling participle, turned out to be good cobbler aside from his fetish. Prof took names, murmured something about getting in touch as transportation became available. I got Prof aside and said, look, Prof, you're too tired to track. You know shit for 7th was cancelled. Now they're talking about slapping embargo on us. Next ship they lift for Luna will be a warship. How you planning to travel as prisoner? Oh, we won't use their ships. So, going to build one. Any idea how long that takes? If could build one at all, which I doubt. Manuel, Mike says it's necessary, and has it all worked out. I did know Mike said it was necessary. He had rerun problems soon as we learned that bright laddies at Richardson had snuck one home. He now gave us only one chance in 53, with imperative need for Prof to go Earthside. But I'm not one to worry about impossibilities. I'd spent day working to make that one chance in 53 turn up. Mike will provide the ship, Prof went on. He has completed its design, and it is being worked on. He has. It is. Since when is Mike engineer? Isn't he? Asked Prof. I started to answer. Shut up. Mike had no degrees, simply knew more engineering than any man alive. Or about Shakespeare's plays, or riddles, or history, name it. Tell me more. Manuel will go to Terra as a load of grain. What? Who's we? You and myself. The other volunteers are merely decorative. I said, look, Prof, I've stuck. Worked hard when whole thing seems silly. Won these weights, got 'em on now, on chance I might have to go to that dreadful place. But contracted to go in this ship, with at least a subword pilot to help me get down safely. Did not agree to go as meteorite. He said, very well, Manuel, I believe in free choice. Always, your alternate will go. My, who? Comrade Wyoming. So far as I know, she is the only other person in training for the trip, other than a few Terrans. So, I went. I talked to Mike first. He said, patiently, man, my first friend, there isn't a thing to worry about. Your scheduled load KM187, Series 76, and you'll arrive in Bombay with no trouble. But to be sure, and I reassure you, I selected that barge because it will be taken out of parking orbit and landed when India is faced toward me. And I've added an override so that I can take you away from ground control if I don't like the way they handle you. Trust me, man. It has all been thought through. Even the decision to continue shipments when security was broken was part of this plan. Might have told me. There was no need to worry you. Professor had to know, and I've kept in touch with him. But you are going simply to take care of him and back him up. Do his job if he dies. A factor on which I can give you no reassurance. I sighed. Okay. But Mike, surely you don't think you can pilot a barge into a soft landing at this distance? Speed of light alone would trip you. Man, don't you think I understand ballistics? For the orbital position then, from query through reply and then to command received is under 4 seconds. And you can rely on me not to waste microseconds. Your maximum parking orbit travel in 4 seconds is only 32 kilometers, diminishing asymptotically to 0 at landing. My reflexive time will be effectively less than that of a pilot in a manual landing because I don't waste time grasping a situation and deciding on correct action. So my maximum is 4 seconds, but my effective reflex time is much less, as I project and predict constantly. See ahead, program it out. In effect, I'll stay 4 seconds ahead of you in your trajectory and respond instantly. That steel can doesn't even have an altimeter. It does now. Man, please believe me. I've thought of everything. The only reason I've ordered this extra equipment is to reassure you. Puna Ground Control hasn't made a bobble in the last 5,000 loads. For a computer, it's very bright. Okay. Mike, how hard do they splash these bleeding barges? What G? Not high, man. 10 gravities in injection. Then that programs down to a steady soft 4 Gs, and you'll be nudged again between 6 and 5 Gs just before splash. The splash itself is gentle, equal to a fall of 50 meters, and you enter ogive first with no sudden shock. Less than 3 Gs. Then you surface and splash again, lightly, and simply float at 1 G. Man, those barge shells are built as lightly as possible for economy's sake. We can't afford to toss them around, or they would split their seams. How sweet. Mike, what would 6 to 5 Gs do to you? Split your seams. I conjecture that I was subjected to about 6 gravities when they shipped me up here. 6 gravities in my present condition would shear many of my essential connections. However, I'm more interested in the extremely high transient accelerations I'm going to experience from shock waves when Terra starts bombing us. Data are insufficient for prediction, but I may lose control of my outlying functions, man. This could be a major factor in any tactical situation. Mike, you really think they're going to bomb us? Count on it, man. That is why this trip is so important. I left it at that, and went out to see this coffin. Should have stayed home. Ever looked at one of those silly barges? Just a steel cylinder with retro and guidance rockets and a radio transponder. Resembles a spaceship way a pair of pliers resembles my number 3 arm. They had this one cut open and were outfitting our living quarters. No galley, no WC, no nothing. Why bother? We were going to be in it only 50 hours. Start empty so that you won't need to honey sack in your suit. Dispense with lounge and bar. You'll never be out of your suit. You'll be drugged and not caring. At least Prof would be drugged almost all time. I had to be alert at landing to try to get us out of this death trap if something went wrong, and nobody came along with a tin opener. They were building a shaped cradle in which bags of our pea suits would fit. We would be strapped into these holes and stay there, clear to Terra. They seem more concerned about making total mass equal to displaced wheat and same center of gravity and all moment arms adding up correctly than they did about our comfort. Engineer in charge told me that even padding to be added inside our pea suits was figured in. Was glad to learn we were going to have padding. The soles did not look soft. Returned home in thoughtful condition. Lyle was not at dinner. Unusual. Greg was. More unusual. Nobody said anything about my being scheduled to imitate a falling rock next day, although all knew. But did not realize anything special was on until all next generation left table without being told. Then knew why Greg had not gone back to Marion Durham's site after Congress adjourned that morning. Somebody had asked for a family talk. Mom looked around and said, We're all here. Ali, shut that door. That's a dear. Grandpa, will you start us? Our senior husband stopped nodding over coffee and firmed up. He looked down table and said strongly, I see that we're all here. I see that children have been put to bed. I see that there is no stranger, no guest. I say that we are met in accordance with customs created by Black Jack Davis, our first husband, and Tilly, our first wife. If there is any matter that concerns safety and happiness of our marriage, haul it out in the light now. Don't let it fester. This is our custom. Grandpa turned to Mom and said softly, Take it, maybe, and slumped back into gentle apathy. But for a minute he had been strong, handsome, virile, dynamic man of days of my upbringing, and I thought with sudden tears how lucky I had been. Then didn't know whether I felt lucky or not. Only excuse I could see for a family talk was the fact that I was due to be shipped earthside next day, labeled as grain. Could Mom be thinking of trying to set family against it? Nobody had to abide by results in the talk, but one always did. That was strength of our marriage. When it came down to issues, we stood together. Mimi was saying, Does anyone have anything that needs to be discussed? Speak up, dears. Greg said, I have. We listened to Greg. Greg is a good speaker. Can stand up in front of a congregation and speak with confidence about matters I don't feel confident about, even when alone. But that night he seemed anything but sure of himself. Well, we've always tried to keep this marriage in balance. Some old, some young, a regular alternation, well-spaced, just as it was handed down to us. But we varied sometimes, for good reason. He looked at Ludmilla, and adjusted it later. He looked again at far end of table, at Frank and Ali, on each side of Ludmilla. Over years, as you can see from records, average age of husbands has been about 40, wives about 35, and that age spread was just what our marriage started with. Nearly 100 years gone by, for Tilly was 15 when she outed Blackjack, and he had just turned 20. Right now I find that average age of husbands is almost exactly 40, while average, Mimi said firmly, Never mind arithmetic, Greg dear. Simply state it. I was trying to think who Greg could possibly mean. True, I had been much away during past year, and if did get home, was often after everybody was asleep. But he was clearly talking about marriage, and nobody ever proposes another wedding in our marriage without first giving everybody a long, careful chance to look prospect over. You just don't do it any other way. So, I'm stupid. Greg stuttered and said, I propose Wyoming not. I said that was stupid. I understand machinery, and machinery understands me, but didn't claim to know anything about people. When I get to be senior husband, if live that long, I'm going to do exactly what Grandpa does with Mom. Let Sidrus run it. Just saying, well look, Wyo joined Greg's church. I like Greg, love Greg, and admire him. But you could never feed theology of his church through a computer and get anything but no. Wyo surely knew this, since she encountered it in adult years. Truthfully, I had suspected that Wyo's conversion was proof that she would do anything for our cause. But Wyo had recruited Greg even earlier, and had made most of trips out to this site easier for her to get away than me or Proof. Oh well, was taken by surprise. Should not have been. Mimi said, Greg, do you have reason to think that Wyo would accept an opt-in from us? Yes. Very well. We all know Wyo. I'm sure we've formed our opinions of her. I see no reason to discuss it, unless someone has something to say. Speak up. Was no surprise to Mom, but wouldn't be. Not to anyone else either, since Mom never let a talk take place unless she was sure of outcome. But wondered why Mom was sure of my opinion, so certain that she had not felt me out ahead of time. And sat there in a soggy quandary, knowing I should speak up, knowing I knew something terribly pertinent which nobody else knew, or matter would never have gone this far. Something that didn't matter to me, but would matter to Mom and all our women. Sat there, miserable coward, and said nothing. Mom said, "Very well, let's call the roll, Ludmilla." Me? Why, I love Wyo. Everybody knows that, sure. Lenore, dear. Well, I may try to talk her into going back to being a brownie again. I think we set each other off, but that's her only fault, being blonder than I am. Duh. Sidrus. Thumbs up. Wyo is our kind of people. And, I have something to say before I express my opinion, Mimi. I don't think it's necessary, dear. Nevertheless, I'm going to haul it out in the open, just as Tilly always did according to our traditions. In this marriage, every wife has carried her load, given children to the family. It may come as a surprise to some of you to learn that Wyo has had 8 children. Certainly surprised Ali. His head jerked and jaw dropped. I stared at plate. Oh, Wyo. How could I let this happen? Was going to have to speak up. And realized Anna was still speaking. So now she can have children of her own. The operation was successful, but she worries about possibility of another defective baby. Unlikely as that is according to the head of the clinic in Hong Kong. So, we'll just have to love her enough to make her quit fretting. We would love her. Mom said serenely. We do love her. Anna, are you ready to express opinion? Hardly necessary, is it? I went to Hong Kong with her, held her hand while her tubes were restored. I helped Wyo. In this family, Mom went on, we've always felt that our husband should be allowed to veto. Odd of us, perhaps, but Tilly started it, and it has always worked well. Well, Grandpa? What were you saying, my dear? We're opting Wyoming, господин Grandpa. Do you give consent? What? Why, of course. Very nice little girl. Say, whatever became of that pretty little afro? Name something like that. She get mad at us? Great. I proposed it. Manuel, do you forbid this? Me? Why you know me, Mom? I do. I sometimes wonder if you know you. Hans. What would happen if I said no? You'd lose some teeth, that plot. Lenore said promptly. Hans votes yes. Stop it, darlings. Mom said with soft purple. Opting is a serious matter. Hans, speak up. Da, yes, yeah, we, see. High time we had a pretty blonde in this, ouch. Stop it, Lenore. Frank? Yes, Mom? Ali, dear. Is it unanimous? I blushed bright pink and couldn't talk. Nodded vigorously. Instead of appointing a husband and a wife to seek out Select D and propose opting for us, Mom sent Ludmilla and Anna to fetch Wyo at once, and found out she was only as far away as Bantam. Nor was that only irregularity. Instead of setting a date and arranging a wedding party, our children were called in. And 20 minutes later, Greg had his book open, and we did be taking vows. And I finally got it through my confused head that was being done with breakneck speed because of my date to break my neck next day. Not that it could matter, save as symbol of my family's love for me. Cynthia Bride spent her first night with her senior husband, and second night and third I was going to spend out in space. But it didn't matter anyhow, and when women started to cry during ceremony, I found self-dripping tears right with them. Then I went to bed, alone, in workshop. Once Wyo had kissed us and left on Grandpa's arm. Was terribly tired, and last 2 days had been hard. Thought about exercises and decided it was too late to matter. Thought about calling Mike and asking him for news from Tara. Went to bed. Don't know how long had been asleep when realized was no longer asleep and somebody was in room. Manuel? Came soft whisper in dark. Huh? Why, you aren't supposed to be here, dear. I am indeed supposed to be here, my husband. Mom knows I'm here, so does Greg, and Grandpa went right to sleep. Oh, what time is? About 400. Please, dear, may I come to bed? What? Oh, certainly. Something I should remember. Oh, yes, Mike. Yes, ma'am, he answered. Switch off, don't listen. If you want me, call me on family phone. So Wyo told me, man. Congratulations. Then her head was pillowed on my stump, and I put right arm around her. What are you crying about, Wyo? I'm not crying. I'm just frightened silly that you won't come back. 16. Woke up scared silly in pitch darkness. Manuel. Didn't know which end was up. Manuel. He called again. Wake up. That brought me out some. Was signal intended to trigger me. Recalled being stretched on a table in an infirmary complex, staring up at a light and listening to a voice while a drug dripped into my veins. It was 100 years ago. Endless time of nightmares. Unendurable pressure. Pain. Knew now what no end is up feeling was. Had experienced before. Free fall. Was in space. What had gone wrong? Had Mike dropped a decimal point? Or had he given in to childish nature and played a joke, not realizing what killed? Then why, after all years of pain, was I alive? Or was I? Was this normal way for ghosts to feel? Just lonely, lost, nowhere. Wake up, Manuel! Wake up, Manuel! Oh, shut up, I snarled. I'm your filthy king on ace. Recording went on. I paid no attention. Where was that reeking light switch? No. Doesn't take a century of pain to accelerate to Luna's escape speed at 3 gravities. Merely feels so. 82 seconds. But it's one time when human nervous system feels every microsecond. 3 Gs is 18 green times as much as a loony ought to weigh. Then discovered those vacuum skulls had not put arm back on. For some silly reason they had taken it off when they stripped me to prepare me. And I was loaded with enough don't worry and let's sleep pills not to protest. No haha had they put it on again. But that Draclic switch was on my left and sleeve of pieces was empty. Spent next 10 years getting unstrapped with one hand. Then a 20-year sentence floating around in dark before managed to find my cradle again. Figured out which was head end. And from that hint locate switch by touch. That compartment was not over 2 meters in any dimension. This turns out to be larger than Old Dome in free fall and total darkness. Found it. We had light. And don't ask why that coffin did not have at least 3 lighting systems all working all time. Had it probably. A lighting system implies a switch to control it, yet. Thing was built in 2 days. Should be thankful switch worked. Once I had light, cubic shrank to true claustrophobic dimensions, and 10% smaller. And I took a look at Proof. Dead, apparently. Well, he had every excuse. Envied him, but was now supposed to check his pulse and breathing, and such like in case he had been unlucky and still had such troubles. And was again hampered, and not just by being one-armed. Grand load had been dried and depressured as usual before loading, but that cell was supposed to be pressured. Oh, nothing fancy, just a tank with air in it. Our pea-suits were supposed to handle needs such as life's breath for those 2 days. But even that pea-suit is more comfortable in pressure than in vacuum, and anyhow, I was supposed to be able to get at my patient. Could not. Did not need to open helmet to know this steel can had not stayed gas tight. knew at once, naturally, from my piece it felt. Oh, drugs I had for proof, heart stimulants and so forth, were in field ampules. Could jam them through his suit. But how to check heart and breathing? His suit was cheapest sort. Sold for loony who rarely leaves Warren. Had no readouts. His mouth hung open, and eyes stared. A debtor, I decided. No need to X-proof beyond that of Lyman. Had illuminated himself. Tried to see pulse on throat. His helmet was in way. They had provided a program clock, which was mighty kind of them. Showed I had been out 44 plus hours, all to plan. And in 3 hours, we should receive horrible booting to place us in parking orbit around Terra. Then, after 2 circums, call it 3 more hours, we should start injection into landing program. If Puna ground control didn't change its feeble mind and leave us in orbit. Remind itself that was unlikely. Brain is not left in vacuum longer than necessary. Has tendency to become puffed wheat or popped corn, which not only lowers value but can split those thin canisters like a melon. Wouldn't that be sweet? Why had they packed us in with grain, when not just a load of rock that doesn't mind vacuum? Had time to think about that and to become very thirsty. Took nipple for half a mouthful, no more, because certainly did not want to take 6 Gs with a full bladder. Didn't know that worried, was equipped with catheter, but did not know. When time got short, I decided couldn't hurt Prof to give him a jolt of drug that was supposed to take him through heavy acceleration. Then, after in parking orbit, give him heart stimulant. Since didn't seem as if anything could hurt him. Gave him first drug, then spent the rest of minutes struggling back into straps, one-handed. Was sorry I didn't know name of my helpful friend. Could have cursed him better. 10 Gs gets you into parking orbit around Terra in a mere 3.26 times 10 to the 7th microseconds. Really seems longer. 10 gravities being 60 times what a fragile sack of protoplasm should be asked to endure. Call it 33 seconds. My truthful word, I suspect my ancestress in Salem spent a worse half-minute day than made her dance. Gave Prof heart stimulant. Then spent 3 hours trying to decide whether to drug self as well as Prof for landing sequence. Decided against. All drug had done for me at catapulting had been to swap a minute and a half of misery and 2 days of boredom for a century of terrible dreams. And besides, if those last minutes were going to be my very last, I decided to experience them. Bad as they would be, they were my very own, and I would not give them up. They were bad. 6 Gs did not feel better than 10. Felt worse. 4 Gs, no relief. Then we were kicked harder. Then suddenly, just for seconds, in free fall again. Then came splash, which was not gentle, and which we took on straps, not pads, as we went in head first. Also, don't think Mike realized that after diving in hard, we would then surface and splash hard again before we damped down into floating. Earthworms call it floating, but it's nothing like floating in freefall. You do it at 1 G, 6 times what is decent, and odd side motions tacked on. Very odd motions. Mike had assured us that solar weather was good, no radiation danger inside that Iron Maiden. But he had not been so interested in Earthside Indian Ocean weather. Prediction was acceptable for landing barges, and suppose he felt that was good enough. And I would have thought so too. Stomach was supposed to be empty, but I filled helmet with sourest, nastiest fluid you would ever go a long way to avoid. Then we turned completely over, and I got it in hair and eyes and some in nose. This is thing earthworms call seasickness, and is one of many horrors they take for granted. Won't go into long period during which we were towed into port. Let it stand that, in addition to seasickness, my air bottles were playing out. They were rated for 12 hours. Plenty for 50-hour orbit, most of which I was unconscious, and not involving heavy exercise, but not quite enough with some hours of towing added. By the time barge finally held still, I was almost too dopey to care about trying to break out. except for one fact. We were picked up, I think, and tumbled a bit. Then brought to rest with me upside down. This is a no good position at best under 1 gravity. Simply impossible when supposed to A. Unstrap self. B. Get out of suit-shaped cavity. C. Get loose a sledgehammer fastened with butterfly nuts to bulkhead. D. Smash same against breakaways guarding escape hatch. E. Batter way out. And F. Finally, drag an old man in a pea suit out after you. Didn't finish step A. Passed out, head downwards. Lucky this was emergency last resort routine. Stu LeJoie had been notified before we left. News services had been warned shortly before we landed. I woke up with people leaning over me. Passed out again. Woke up second time in hospital bed. Flat on back with heavy feeling in chest. Was heavy and weak all over. But not ill, just tired, bruised, hungry, thirsty, languid. Was a transparent plastic tent over bed, which accounted for the fact I was having no trouble breathing. At once was closed in on from both sides. A tiny Hindu nurse with big eyes on one side. Stuart LeJoie another. He grinned at me. Hey, Cabert, how do you feel? I'm right. But oh bloody. What a way to travel. Prof says it's the only way. What a tough old boy he is. Hold it. Prof said Prof is dead? Not at all. Not in good shape. We've got him in a pneumatic bed with a round-the-clock watch, and more instruments wired into him than you would believe. But he is alive, and will be able to do his job. But truly, he didn't man the trip. He never knew about it, so he says, want to sleep in one hospital, woke up in another. I thought he was wrong when he refused to let me wangle it to send a ship, but he was not. The publicity has been tremendous. I said slowly, you say Proof refused to let you send a ship? I should say, Sherman Celine refused. Didn't you see the dispatcher's name? No. Too late to fight over it. The last few days have been busy. A Dinkum word. Here too. Don't recall when I last dosed. You sound like a loony. I am a loony, money. Don't ever doubt it. But the sister is looking daggers at me. Still picked her up. Turned her around. I decided he wasn't all loony yet. But nurse didn't resent. Go play somewhere else, dear. I'll give your patient back to you, still warm in a few minutes. He shut the door on her and came back to bed. But Adam was right. This was not only wonderful publicity, but safer. Publicity, I suppose, but safer. Let's not talk about it. Safer, my old. You weren't shot at. Yet they had 2 hours in which they knew right where you were, a big fat target. They couldn't make up their minds what to do. They haven't formed a policy yet. They didn't even dare not bring you down on schedule. The news was full of it. I had stories slanted and waiting. Now they don't dare touch you. You're popular heroes. Whereas, if I had waited to charter a ship and fetch you, oh well, I don't know. We probably would have been ordered into parking orbit. Then you too, myself perhaps, would have been taken off under arrest. No skipper is going to risk missiles no matter how much is paid. The proof of the pudding, cover. But let me brief you. You're both citizens of the People's Directorate of Chad. Best I could do on short notice. Also, Chad has recognized Lina. I had to buy one from Minister to Generals, some tribal chiefs, and a Minister of Finance. Cheap for such a hurry-up job. I haven't been able to get you diplomatic immunity, but I hope to, before you leave hospital. At present, they haven't even dared arrest you. They can't figure out what you've done. They have guards outside, but simply for your protection. And a good thing, are you and ever Porter's 9 deep shoving microphones into your face? Just what have we done? That they know about, illegal immigration. Not even that many. You never were a consignee, and you have a derivative Pan-African citizenship through one of your grandfathers. No, haha. In Professor De La Paz's case, we dug up proof that he had been granted naturalized Chad citizenship 40 years back, waited for the ink to dry, and used it. You're not even illegally entering here in India. Not only did they bring you down themselves, knowing that you were in that barge, but also a control officer very kindly and fairly cheaply stamped your virgin passports. In addition to that, Prof's exile has no legal existence, as the government that prescribed him no longer exists. And a competent court has taken notice. That was more expensive. Nurse came back in, indignant as a mother cat. Lord Stewart, you must let my patient rest. At once, ma chérie. Your Lord Stewart should be caught. Or I can lay a dubious claim to being the McGregor. The blue blood bit helps. These people haven't been happy since they took their royalty away from them. As he left, he patted her rump. Instead of screaming, she wiggled it. Was smiling as she came over to me. Stu was going to have to watch that stuff when he went back to Luna. If she did. She asked how I felt. Told her I was right, just hungry. Sister, did you see some prosthetic arms in our luggage? She had, then I felt better with number 6 in place. I'd selected it, and number 2, and social arm, as enough for trip. Number 2 was presumably still in complex. I hope somebody was taking care of it. But number 6 is most all-around useful arm. With it and social one, I'd be okay. 2 days later, we left for Agra to present credentials to Federated Nations. I was in bad shape, and not just high G. Could do well enough in a wheelchair and could even walk a little, although did not in public. What I had was a sore throat that missed pneumonia only through drugs. Traveler's trots, skin disease on hands and spreading to feet, just like my other trips to that diseased-ridden hole Terra. We Lunas don't know how lucky we are, living in a place that has tightest of quarantines, almost no vermin, and one we have controlled by vacuum anytime necessary. Or unlucky, since we have almost no immunities if turns out we need them. Still, wouldn't swap. Never heard word venereal until first went earthside, and had thought common cold was state of ice miner's feet. And wasn't cheerful for other reason. Stu had fetched us a message from Adam Celine. Buried in it, concealed even from Stu, was news that chances had dropped to worse than 1 in 100. Wondered what point in risking crazy trip if made out worse. Did Mike really know what chances were? Couldn't see any way you could compute them, no matter how many facts he had. But Prof didn't seem worried. He talked to platoons of reporters, smiled at endless pictures, gave out statements, telling world he placed great confidence in Federated Nations and was sure our just claims would be recognized, and that he wanted to thank friends of Free Luna for wonderful help in bringing true story of our small but sturdy nation before good people of Terra. F of FL being Stu, a professional public opinion firm, several thousand chronic petition signers, and a great stack of Hong Kong dollars. I had picture taken too, and tried to smile, but dodged questions by pointing to throat and croaking. In Agra, we were lodged in a lavish suite in a hotel that had once been palace of a Maharaja, and still belonged to him, even though India is supposed to be socialist. And interviews and picture-taking went on. Hardly dared get out of wheelchair, even to visit WC, as was under orders from Prof never to be photographed vertically. He was always either in bed or in a stretcher. Bed baths, bed pans, everything. Not only because safer, considering age, and easier for any loony, but also for pictures. His dimples and wonderful, gentle, persuasive personality were displayed in hundreds of millions of video screens, endless news pictures. But his personality did not get us anywhere in Agra.